Ward Hiney. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I am a documentary filmmaker. And I've been doing documentary-related stuff for probably a little more than a decade now. Oof, more than that, like 15
Goes
years.
fast, man.
Yeah, and the last probably 4 or 5 of which have been directly related to subjects of high strangeness and the paranormal. And yeah, that's what I do. I now own and operate Dark Holler Studios, which is a production company specifically aimed at doing these kinds of things. So I direct, we call them high strangeness adventure films. So we specifically take an experiential approach to these topics and places, go to them in an attempt to examine, I guess, more than explain, really, examine these phenomena and the human experience that constitutes it for ourselves by interviewing witnesses and then being in places where these things happen.
So say that again. What do you call them now?
I call them high strangeness adventure films.
That's awesome. I think it's perfect.
We make an attempt to place the audience sort of along with us on the trip. So they get to experience the thing that we're experiencing in a fairly direct way. That has more to do with like the aesthetics of the filmmaking, but it's a philosophical bent that we have that way, rather than like telling stories merely or talking about the history of a thing heavily. We focus on the experience of it.
Yeah, it sounds way cooler than documentary film, you know? Let's be honest. I mean, so high strangest adventure film. That's awesome. So you kind of alluded to like Dark Holler and whatnot, Dark Holler films, but what, obviously you're older than that. So what got you into high strangeness? Like what was like your gateway to this world of, frankly, craziness sometimes, right?
Yeah. I could start that story like, years before anything actually happens. I could, my father was a pretty contrarian, sort of conspiratorial minded guy, and I got some of that. So I'm already kind of probably predisposed to sort of turn narratives on their side and look at them in different ways. So that's probably like a foundational point of it. But I had never, I grew up in Christianity, and by the time I was maybe probably like a pietistic fundamentalist version of Christianity, which had fairly well made me close to an atheist by the time I was like, say 20, early 20s. And sort of the big thing that was a challenge to that then was the new atheism movement, Richard Dawkins, Chris Hitchens, Sam Harris, those guys. And so I found myself wrestling with that. And after I had kind of resolved that apologetic concern via the work of guys like Greg Bonson and some evidentialist people as well, William Lane Craig and the like, that was what I was preparing for. That's what I thought sort of the big challenge to Christianity would be, was that kind of stuff. And so I dove into apologetic arguments a lot. As it turns out, when you deny like transcendental meaning altogether, that's not very satisfying for very long for very many people. And so what's happened is that our society in general has been abandoning that in favor of finding transcendental meaning other places. And so spirituality in general, quote unquote, is where a lot of that's coming from. So that's kind of answering that question from a the historic moment that I find myself in kind of angle. The other angle is, personally, what happened. So COVID happened to everybody, and
Right.
was a big, I think, red pill for everybody to kind of like look at the narratives that you are the narratives that are handed to you, and be like, not sure. So in the middle of COVID, I had some friends that went real crazy on the conspiracy side. I had, a gamut of friends that spanned the ideological spectrum with respect to like, how much can we trust mainstream narratives of anything? And at the same time, I had run into Tom O'Neill, who was the author of, I can't remember the name of the book, but it's a book about MK Ultra, the CIA, and their involvement with the Manson family, Charles Manson. Very well researched, sticks to documentable things, but it basically makes the case that Manson was connected with some of the MK Ultra stuff.
Yeah.
That was one block. The second was I ran into a gentleman named Ray Boucher, who had a very strange story. He was the state director for MUFON, Nebraska in, I believe, like the late 80s, early 90s, and was approached by some Department of Defense people, according to him, who presented him with evidence in this. Their contention was that there were elements within intelligence agencies that were using ritual to contact entities that were identifying themselves as the pilots of the UFOs.
Yeah. Got you.
And Boucher thought this was crazy. He's an academic and Anglican priest. And the reason they came to him was because he was both involved in the UFO subject at a high level and had this religious background as an Anglican priest. And the story gets pretty convoluted. Nick Redfern wrote a book about it, but Boucher contacted another, like probably the most respected UFO journalist at the time, Linda Moulton Howe, who confirmed via third parties that something like this story was true. And so that was, at least there were people in government outside of the people that were feeding Boucher this information that believed it to be true. So that was kind of the second thing, was like, oh, hold up. What is going on with the UFO thing? And, oh, this is actually real. What should I think about it?
Yeah. Like, well, the O'Neill book is chaos.
Yes, that's it. That's right.
Yeah, I've read it too, but I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember it. So
yeah, the subtitle is very straightforward. It's just like CIA, MK Ultra, and Charles Manson.
Charles Manson. Yeah.
The title. Okay, so then the third thing, and this is probably the most, you can see the direction here. The third thing I ran into was this paranormal documentary series called Hellier.
Oh yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Kentucky. Yeah.
Where,
I've watched it.
Yeah, it's a very popular, was a big deal in the paranormal community. And it caught my interest because the events, at least as they begin, occur very close to southern West Virginia, where I grew up, is maybe an hour from Hellier. Maybe a little more than that, depending on the roads have developed in the intervening years. But anyway, it's close enough that,
as the crow flies, it's not really that far.
Yeah. And I had a friend who I'd known for many years, who had planted a church down there. And after watching the Hellier series, I reached out to him and I said, yo, this is like kind of in your backyard. Have you ever encountered anything weird? And he said that he's very academic guy himself, photographic memory, very intelligent, well-read, not sort of a charismatic Christian, not sort of a like hit you on the head, handle the snakes guy. That's not him.
Right.
but he had said, well, strangely enough, a few weeks ago, we had this situation where I had baptized this girl, and I believe that an exorcism occurred in her baptism. And at the time, I had gotten this is Dark Holler. This is what becomes Dark Holler, kind of the impetus for everything else. At the time, I had just gotten my own kind of freelance setup to do my own documentary work outside of my main corporate job. And so I thought, well, I'll go down and interview this girl who was at that point, like, joining the church, and just hear the story from her, and maybe interview Josh and then some of the people that witnessed it, and see what's we're just going to make like a short YouTube thing, maybe for the church, or maybe just to practice. And during the interview, it turns out that there was a lot more history and a lot of stuff that happened leading up to this that was really obvious. And then we shot that one interview and then came back a month or two later and ended up like just making a bunch of really strange, but to me, as a person going through it, and to the people that were there, kind of undeniable connections and just weird synchronicities that we were able to document. And so that kind of, had to decide what to do with all of that. Turned it into like a 5-chapter docuseries. And after that, that was a long process. It's a year of editing, maybe.
Yeah.
And then afterward, I myself belong to a faith tradition that is typically not super open to this kind of weird stuff, like at least in its modern form. And so I was concerned that I would be perceived as some kind of wacko talking about these things, belonging to like the faith community that I do. But as God would have it, he had put me in like the one of very few, I would imagine, congregations in my faith tradition that is apparently quite open to the reality of these things. And so I was able to have the support for that. And even over several months of practicing Lectio Divina, it's like meditative reading of scripture and that kind of thing, came to the conclusion that I might be called to pursue this kind of thing. And I brought that idea, which within my faith tradition is a crazy thing. Like, I'm a Reformed Protestant Presbyterian. Like, we don't do that kind of stuff generally. So I was like, well, let me bring this to a couple of trusted, advisors, my elders there. And I was like, surely they'll shoot it down and say, you better find something better to do with your time. But both of them that I brought this to were both like, well, that sounds like what you're supposed to do, so you should do that.
Wow.
And then I remember the evening after having that second conversation, I was in prayer, and I basically accepted. I was like, okay, God, if this is what what I'm supposed to do, we'll do this until you're done with me doing it. And that night, all three of my children and myself had nightmares directly relating to the symbolism around the entity that we identified in Dark Holler. And without me, I have not told my kids any of this at that point.
Right.
So independently, all of us had that experience. And at that point, I was like, well, okay, so I think we're taking fire because we're over target. So that's kind of what's led to the rest of these films that I've done, many in cooperation with Tony Merkel of The Confessionals and Joel Thomas of Free the Rabbits podcast. Those guys have become good friends, like-minded guys in pursuing these things. And so, yeah, that's kind of the cast of characters that we draw from as we go
Yeah.
places.
Right. Which is awesome. I mean, they do great work, right?
Yeah, I mean, Tony's a really interesting one because he has like 700 some episodes now of people that have experiences. And so, he can't remember all those stories in detail, but he's got a pretty good sense of like the general direction of the data on stuff that people are reporting. And
Yeah.
there's not like, unlike BFRO for Bigfoot or MUFON for UFOs, or there's not really like a high strangeness version of that, where people collect a database of all these stories so that you can identify patterns and stuff. So guys like Tony or Wes Germer, Sasquatch Chronicles, like if you look at the breadth of people that they've talked to, that kind of is your data set for this. And understanding that, not all of those people are probably genuine, but probably, I think that after listening to a lot of them are, they're at least describing their perceptions as they experience them. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he's got a pretty good BS meter
Yeah.
at this
Yeah.
point. It's a muscle that gets developed pretty quickly. I know when I was a cop, I helped that, when I would get to a point where I could pretty much tell, what's real, what's not.
Yeah.
Body language and just gut, right? So explain. So yeah, you kind of touched on it with Dark Holler, how that whole thing evolved, like from the initially 2 interviews, then I mean, a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
If that's what we want to call it. Some sort of hole.
Yeah. Well, the way that I experienced it is in talking with Kristen, who was the girl who was baptized. She related that her mother had experienced a lot of stuff leading up to the baptism, and that Kristen's memory of it is largely blacked out. Like she was either out of her body or doesn't remember any of it, but her mother does. And so I thought, we got to come back and talk to the mom. When we did that, when we initially came back that second trip, that was going to be the long one, where we were going to interview her mom, a friend that had witnessed it, as many people as we could that were there, we were going to try and interview. When we first arrived, we were in Cross Lanes, West Virginia, which is a town that my wife grew up in, that we had spent, a lot of time in growing up. And something that we had never seen there when we first got down on Sunday was this giant cloud of vultures that descended over the town and stayed there through the week that we were there. And I had never...
It's just crazy.
Yeah. I had never seen anything like that. And, I'd lived there a long time. Neither had Kayla, my wife. Neither had a bunch of people. Like there were people standing outside of the Kroger there in Cross Lanes staring up at it.
What is going on?
People in neighborhoods. Yeah. And I drove around and asked some of them, have you ever seen anything like this? And no. So, okay. After a few days, I actually took a drone up and flew it kind of toward the cloud of vultures that was still like circling. And I remember one of the vultures took like kind of a dive at it, and I was like, "Oh, gotta bring the drone down." But yeah, so that was kind of the first hint to me that like there's something possibly different going to happen this week. But when we finally got to talk to her mom, And she described everything that Kristen had gone through in the night or two leading up to her baptism. There was a lot there. But more striking than that was some of the stuff that started to come up about her family history, things that had happened to her mother when she was a child, that had like unplanned and odd resonance with things that Kristen was involved with. So there's myriad examples of this, but one of them is that there was her mother recalls, and forgive me, this is like 5 years ago now, so
Yeah,
I
right.
recall off the top of my head, but her mother recalls that there was her brother was named Craig, one of her brothers, and that Craig and this other brother, whose name escapes me at the moment, but they had been involved in practicing some form of witchcraft that involved a table and pentagram and candles and bird feet and tarot cards, and also bizarrely like Jehovah's Witness material, like stuff from Watchtower Press.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but I never did connect, like figure out what that part was about. But anyway, lots of those elements later showed up in Kristen's practice. She had been practicing sort of hedge witchcraft, hoodoo, for some time before being baptized. Obviously, she had been practicing this stuff for some time in an attempt to deal with the fact that from as early as she can remember, there were this dark figure or like a shadow entity that she would see all the time. And kind of in an attempt to gain control over that, she started pursuing witchcraft of a few different sorts. As a result of that, as well as sort of combined with substance abuse, she found that there would be episodes where she was sort of out of her body, that she would lose control of herself, and that people would report to her that she would become like violent and hateful and angry, and she wouldn't remember any of this. People reported her speaking in a voice that isn't hers, that kind of thing. Stuff that you associate with what we call, demon possession now.
Yeah.
So, as elements of her practice were echoed in things that her mother described Craig and these people doing. The person who her mother perceived having introduced this to Craig and his brother was I think the technically accurate term was transvestite.
Okay.
At the time, person whose name was Gerald, but who it turns out wanted to be called Lilith. Lilith was one of basically the primary kind of archetype that Kristen was involved in worshiping without knowing this about her uncle Craig at all. And then it turns out that one of the motifs that's associated with this Lilith archetype is the owl.
Yeah.
And it, we, as the week goes on, we start discovering that like the entire extended family, all of them that we can talk to, have really bizarre interactions with owls over the course of their lives. Also with like what we'd call a thunderbird, or like birds too large to be biologically plausible, that they hadn't talked about. They hadn't discussed this among themselves. But once we touch on this theme of like the owl and the carrion eating bird, that starts resonating across, like everyone's like, oh wait, this one time I had this. And and even like while we're down there, one of the cousins has a strange experience with an owl kind of staring him down as he's sitting in a tree stand. Sends us the video. And so there's, I can't even recall. It's a storm of things like that. And then toward the end of the week, we actually went back to the childhood home where some of this happened and just tried to knock on the door. And they let us in. And once we explained what we were doing, it was like there was this flood of experiences that these people had had in this home that matched the experiences that Kristen's mother was describing from 30 years prior. And they had never talked to each other or anything. Things like, voices from the same area. There were certain ways that Craig, the uncle who was involved with the ritual stuff, had arranged the house, had arranged the room and stuff that had been recreated by the people who were moved in. So he had this array of dream catchers all around the room. And these people, when they moved in, had found like all of these dream catchers in a closet. I don't know if they were the same ones, but
Right.
They had then gone and arranged them around the room in the same way that Craig did, without direction. There were 3 windows that Craig had blacked out in the house that these folks had then gone back and blacked out those windows. Kristen's mother, her name was Heather, is Heather. Her father had been pushed down the stairs in this house by something, he said. The guy who lived there had been pushed down those stairs.
Yeah, I remember that. Crazy.
Had the scars and the holes in the wall to show for it.
To prove it.
Yeah. And then beyond that, the kind of, there's a number of things that I still look back at, because sometimes when you experience stuff like this, and I don't know if you have your own experiences, but your mind very tries to rationalize everything.
Oh yeah.
Like there's still some like bedrock things that I look back on that experience and I'm like, that really was weird, and there's no way for me to like deny that it really was weird. That house is one of them. There was also right at the end of the trip, we were getting ready to leave. It's really difficult to explain, so you should just watch the thing. But at the end of it, there was like a spontaneous flooding of a house by water that we couldn't identify a source for. That was really bizarre.
Yeah.
I still don't.
To say the least, it was really bizarre.
I don't have an explanation for that other than,
and I don't think they do either.
No. So, yeah. I don't know. I'm struggling to condense like.
It's a lot. And plus, you know what, folks, just go watch it.
Yeah.
You know, they don't need Ward here to explain the whole thing. Go watch it. It's pretty amazing. So, what it did for me though, and I'm trying to remember exactly when I watched it, how many years ago. It was a while ago though. And I was it really kind of helped me understand what was going on with me, I think, at the time, where I had kind of been plagued by this, and I'm not going to make this about me, but just a little bit.
No, yeah, I want to hear.
Because of the Lilith stuff, it cracked open a box in my head, or a can of worms, whatever you want to call it, that I'd been struggling with for a while. And because I had nightmares that involved this, the best way to describe it literally is the ring. You know, that
Hmm.
the girl from The Ring. And that's a lot of what it presented that way, right?
Yeah.
And also lots of owls. And I didn't really understand the owl until I watched Dark Holler. So shortly thereafter that too, I also saw a episode of the confessionals with the guys from Appalachian Intelligence.
Yes.
And he talked about his experience with a Lilith type entity. And I, yeah, it, it was like I had an epiphany. And as soon as I had that epiphany on what was happening to me, it manifested into real, like owls hooting in my backyard and stuff like that. Like that
Yeah.
I was confronted in
Yeah.
my dreams and in waking hours, even in the middle of the day. Owls don't really play around during the day, you know? So there's either way. And, so I just had this whole experience. And, so part of Dark Holler really opened my eyes to what this could be.
Hmm.
Right. And then it was just solidified with other things. So yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. I've heard that from a number of people, that it provides category for experience that they've had. So yeah.
When I realized there were some things in our house too that were associative with the entity, or that like the moon, the half moons, and just certain symbolism, right?
Yeah.
That swiftly got removed from the home. And then literally after one of my incidents, my wife comes home with a gift from a friend that was the moon phase, the moon
Yeah.
phases. And I'm like, nope, it's not coming in this house. Sorry.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of like the last. And since then, I consistently pray on it, and for protection and all the things, right? But I did a whole, cleansing prayer. I would call it a, sermon, basically, to help rid myself of this, and then doing other things. All in a biblical sense, or,
Yeah.
asking Jesus for assistance and all the folks. and I haven't had incidents since.
Yeah.
But it was a lot, you know. Um, so with that being said, yeah, you kind of had a part in that, or at least your film did, right?
Well, good. Yeah. Good. I think, we just, as a family, went through. I'm preparing to go on another one of these trips here in a couple weeks, and it's going to be pretty direct provocation in a way that we probably haven't done since Dark Holler. And there's been a lot of nightmares, a lot of that kind of stuff. Not because we're talking about it. Like, I don't, talk about it
Well,
that much.
the enemy knows, man.
Yeah, and
They just know.
so yeah, we just went through and did house blessing, just reading psalms and prayer, and marking the doorways and stuff
Yeah.
for the first time as a family. And I think it has helped. And I think there are reasons that God permits these things, permits these experiences in our lives, and the point of it, I think, is to drive us to be dependent on Him. And
Yep.
so that's, we've been leaning into that in a very direct way. So, yeah, there is for sure an enemy, and
For sure.
that's what we're pushing against, right? We aren't.
I go through a lot of anointing oil. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
In a non, as Tony would say, as your friend Tony would say, my house is dripping in oil. And then he says, no, Daddy. That's what he said the other day. I was like, come on, man. But yeah, dripping in oil. So, ooh, you're glitching. See, we're talking about stuff and Stuff's
Yeah, there we go.
happening.
All right, are we back? Oh, you dropped again.
There we go. Hold on. Yeah, we're experiencing technical difficulties. Hold on. There am I. What is going on? There we go. See?
Just as
you start talking about stuff and
Yep.
It's inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, I don't get it. And I'm trying to remember who I was doing, and it's happened a few times. Like things will just flutter on the screen. Like, you know, like on your phone, if you send it, like with the iPhone, if you send happy birthday to somebody, balloons will go like that.
Yeah.
Right? But that's on my phone. I've never had it happen on the computer until the other day. And balloons like went up, and I've had other stuff happen and it recorded it.
Yeah. Are you on
so bizarre.
Are you on an Apple?
I am.
I think there's a thing.
There probably is, but like, why? I don't. Either way, but it's always when we're talking about certain things, and yeah, see, there's like the thumbs up.
I did that.
Right.
It's not like
yeah.
No. All right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Either way, so I was saying, I use a lot of anointing oil.
Yeah.
And
we did for again, that's not a reformed thing, but
right.
We did. I've come to understand that, I mean, a lot of this progression over the last 5 years is coming to understand. We tend to divide like a spiritual realm and the physical realm as if they're divorced things.
Yeah, and they're just not.
Yeah, and I think a lot of like the point of sacraments and stuff is that spiritual participates in physical and vice versa. And so, we used oil as a sort of enacted prayer, like a way of physically praying.
Right.
Appreciating that the symbolism of it is that it's liquid light or liquid fire, and you're enacting a prayer physically for the spirit to dwell here. So anyway, I think there is a danger in sort of a superstitious application of that stuff, where it's like there's some innate power in the thing.
Right.
But of course that's not, that's magic. But the power doesn't reside in the thing, nor does the power reside in my will or my desire for it or my intention for it. The power is God's. And so we're dependent on a personal agent God to decide what he wants to do. So
yeah, I kind of look at it as a physical representation of, what we're doing, right?
Yes.
Just like a cross is.
Yes.
So if I make a cross with oil, it serves the same purpose. It's not going to actually protect you. It's not like, the movies where you're holding a cross and throwing holy water on something, whatever, it's not the actual symbol, but it's what is behind that symbol. Right. So, for sure. Absolutely. So all right. So you've done some stuff with Merkel Media.
Yeah.
What other movies have you filmed with them?
So the first time I met Tony by calling him, I had sent him the trailer for Dark Holler and maybe even an episode of it. And I had called him because I wanted to go on the show and, promote the show.
The thing.
Yeah. And he called me and we ended up talking for like 4 hours about,
holy moly,
about all of this stuff, and ended up clicking really well. Like the things that we were trying to accomplish are well met. And so as part of that, he was like, he wanted to have me on promote the thing, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to Kentucky in like a month to hunt dogman. Do you want to do that?" And I was like, "Well, yes." I was like, "I can justify this by saying it's kind of like an exchange, you know. Let me come on the show, and I'll go shoot for you." But also, like at that point, I was like, that's one step weirder than what I was doing, and so I was like, "Well, okay,
Yeah.
let's go." So we went down and we did that, and that again was going to be like a piece for his YouTube channel. And it ended up he and we were able to shoot some stuff. Christian was the other guy that was on that. Roper, goodness, his last name escaped me. Christian Roper was the other filmmaker who was on that, and ended up editing that together into like a feature thing. And there were maybe 3 total like genuinely weird things that happened there.
Yeah.
There were a couple
Yeah.
of prints
Yeah.
that we
It was
found
a
that
good
were
one.
weird. And then there was just a tree that like violently shook out of nowhere. But being green at it, we didn't catch that. And so, that one, it is what it is. It's an interesting starting point, I guess. But from there, when that one turned out as well produced as it was, I think Tony was kind of taken aback at what we were able to make out of just zero budget, staying in a cabin
Yeah,
and
right.
walking.
Like walking around with phones.
Yeah.
I mean, not phones per se, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. So after that, the next one, he had an invitation from Ryan Burns of Space Wolf Research,
Yep.
which is a property that borders the infamous Sherman Ranch, Skinwalker Ranch fame, and sort of overlooks the valley that the ranch is in, and then the mesa beyond, the kind of famous mesa where everything happens.
The
And
basin.
we decided, like, that's a 30-hour drive, but we're gonna load up everything and go do a week at Space Wolf. And that one did get real weird. We found next to where we camped, we found an altar that was identified to us by the guy who's kind of the indigenous guide contact that Ryan works with there at Space Wolf Research, a guy named Johnny. Was identified that altar as an implement in skinwalker medicine. So that was bizarre. It was maybe 150 yards from our campsite, and when Tony and I discovered it, we both like were looking at it. It's a circle made of deer bones and skulls, and
Yep.
with crystals and coins and an offering of tobacco. And the skulls are arranged on like the cardinal directions, and it's very intentional, obviously. And when Tony and I found it, we were like a little bit creeped out. It was like dusk, the sun was setting, and we started on our way back up to the campfire, and both felt as if we were being watched, like that feeling of something observing you. And I remember stopping on the way back up, and we prayed about it. And then as we approached the campfire, there was another younger guy, Ute tribal member named Bo Standing Rock, who is a musician. His music's legit good. But Bo Standing Rock was sitting with us at the campfire, and as we approached, he's had a lot of weird experiences in his life, like a lot of them involving this kind of skinwalker archetype.
Yeah.
And anyway, as we walked up to the fire, he turns and looks at us, and he goes, "You're being watched, like you're being followed." And so we're like, "Oh, that's weird that you say that." And then we started showing, like, I think I had taken a picture on my phone of the altar when we were down there, and we started showing the picture around the campfire. And we're passing it around, everyone's reacting, and at about the point when the last person at the campfire sees the picture, another guy off to my left, I think Christian actually turns around and sees that the mesa, the infamous Skinwalker Ranch mesa, is shooting lights into the sky, like as if somebody's got a really high-powered spotlight shooting up into the sky. And then for about the next hour, I would say, we started observing like, I guess UFO orbs, like lights down in the valley, and then a little bit after that overhead, moving in different directions, back and forth, different sizes, different colors. Even the ones that are down closer to the earth were several different colors: red, green, and blue. And we were able to catch some of that on like night vision cameras. And yeah, that was like our first night there. And
you're like, this is gonna be a long week.
Yeah, like this got real weird real fast. I think at some point, I mean, you guys can watch the movie, but some of the stuff that happened that didn't get recorded. One night I woke up. So before we got there, maybe a week before, there was a shipping container, like the larger size shipping container.
Oh yeah,
that had been arranged. It would be like east-west orientation, and it had at some point rotated like 90 degrees, where it almost came into contact with another building, like a shed that was right there. But it had rotated 90 degrees and then sat down again without any cranes or earth moving equipment or trucks. There were no tracks in that would indicate any of that. And the like property manager guy, the guy who stays there year round, hadn't like no evidence of anything coming in and moving.
Right.
One thing that didn't make the movie is in the place where that shipping container had been, there was like in the middle of it, there was like a wolverine paw, which is a super rare animal.
Yeah.
And a weird thing to be, if you had a wolverine paw, like a preserved one, I don't know why you would leave it there. But anyway, we found that. We had set up our tent immediately behind the shipping container, hoping that it didn't rotate again, I guess. But also it was a windbreak so that the tent didn't blow away.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember one night I had woken up and you could see through, like the tent was translucent. So you'd kind of see like light through it, and something like the size of a basketball. I didn't have my glasses or contacts in at the time, so it was just blurry, but something like the size of a basketball, just white light, passed like right over, fairly quick, like zoop, over the roof of the tent. And I scrambled up and like put my glasses on and then like got out, and nothing. So there were a few things like that. We saw, like I saw what looked to me like red fireflies in the tree lines. Not sure what that was about.
Yeah.
And then toward the end of it, we got followed like in a vehicle, by another vehicle. And there was a car chase, and it got weird. We were trying to figure out who it was or what it was about. And,
Right.
yeah, I don't know. There's several weird things with that one. So, yeah, then we did that. And then, we were able to go the next project. We were able to go out to Washington and visit,
Oh yeah.
Wes Germer and the site where he had his, fairly famous encounter. He's the host of Sasquatch Chronicles. It's pretty big Sasquatch, probably the biggest, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest.
Yeah, it's up there anyway. But we went to where he had his experience. He and Tony are best friends, have been friends for years, and we stayed the night up there. And
man, y'all are brave, because Wes won't even.
Yeah,
Wes won't even go up there anymore hardly.
Yeah. but heard like a lot of strange. We heard whistles, like someone whistling for a dog. And I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere. There's
Yeah.
no one walking a dog up there at 3 a.m. And we had something knock on the RV that we were using.
Yeah.
Stepped out and there was nothing
And
there.
that's actually on film,
Yeah,
isn't
we
it?
caught the audio
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
We also, I think we caught whistle audio a couple of times up there. The knock, and then when we stepped out after the knocking, it smelled like I started hunting deer a few years ago, and the only thing I can liken it to is like a very, very strong rutting buck smell.
Yeah.
So mixed with maybe like raw or rotten meat.
Yeah. Like a little decomp.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah,
I know the smell.
yeah. So, and those are all of the kind of the films that have come out. You know, we've averaged maybe like a couple a year, I think. So usually
Yeah.
we try and get a trip in every 6 months or so. So yeah,
Awesome. Yeah. And all three of them are great.
thanks. Yeah.
I'm a fan.
We've set, we have some other things. One of the strangest experiences that we've had going out and doing these things isn't in one yet because we're going back in the fall. But there was a night we were out. Are you familiar with Scott Carpenter?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, I'd say as Sasquatch researchers go, he's one of my idols, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we actually, we try to attribute this every time we use it, but after Washington, we started using his method for mounting a gimbal mounted GoPro facing behind.
Facing backwards. Yeah, we do something similar too. Because of him.
Yeah. And we call it the Carpenter method, as hopefully people will discover. But we met with his son, Travis, in Tennessee, and he actually let us use his like Scott's Evo gimbal and GoPro because they don't make that anymore.
No.
And not
yeah,
that
I know. I've been shopping for one for a long time. Any gimbal for a GoPro, and you can't. They just don't exist hardly. And
yeah,
it's
there's
like,
not a compact one like that.
Right.
So
not like that.
We've got a rig that we can actually talk about this if you want, the way that I've figured out doing it. But anyway, we were in the location where Scott did a lot of his research, also where he had Les Stroud during the incident where Les felt like he was telepathically communicated to by something, which he only, I think, publicly acknowledged like in November. He did on his YouTube channel. You can go look for that. He talks about it. But so we were out in that area and it was about 3 a.m. Tony and Joel had taken a hike trying to use a night vision camera to do the Carpenter thing with it faced behind. So Joel had one on facing behind him. Tony had one handheld. And they had taken this turn off of the main path. And it was like we were getting ready to leave. And they went, and Tony starts feeling sick as they're hiking down this trail. And so he stops for a minute. He's like, I got to stop. Sets the night vision camera down, not really even paying attention to whether it's recording still or not. Luckily it was. Well, it's not luck, I guess, but it was recording. But he faced it toward him. And Joel's is facing behind. And so Joel's kind of standing, sort of scanning the woods beyond them with his camera while Tony's sat there kind of feeling nauseous. And we recorded the audio of this. And what they experienced was it sounded like something large and bipedal charging through the leaves. And in the audio, you can hear it start off and rapidly get louder, like it's approaching the microphone. They hear it in real time, and both of them like yell, and Tony like stands up and draws a gun.
Yes, he tells the story actually. I don't mean to laugh, but
No,
it's kind of fun.
and I'm about 100 yards away at like a fire we had set up. Probably to preface all of this, I should say that we went into the woods because we saw lights that kind of led us this direction.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm 100 yards away at a campfire. I hear them yell. And so I get on the radio and I go, "Are you guys okay?" And Joel radios back something like, "Something just charged us, like a bluff charged." I didn't realize at the time, but they were on a path that it sounded like the thing ran up. And there's nothing, like when they looked, there's nothing there. It was unseen. So within about 30 seconds of that, that radio message, there starts up what sounds like, have you ever been to a chimp or bonobo exhibit at the zoo?
Yeah.
When they're like, razzing each other out. "Ah, whoop, wow."
Yep. Yelling, fighting, whatever.
It sounds like a chorus of that is going on the ridge above them. And I hear that back at camp too. And we've got the audio of that. I hear all of that going on. And I'm like, I was like, "Is that you guys? I thought they were joking."
You thought they were messing with you, right?
Yeah, I thought they were out there making noises.
Yep.
But it wasn't. So, as we have the whole episode, like we have the audio and the video of it. But yeah, they come back to the camp and describe what it was, but that one hasn't made it into a thing yet. We hope to go back down there and spend like a full week doing that location specifically.
We have a very similar experience. And one of my buddies who's now my co-host for my podcast, Whispers of the Wood Ape, and he's all in Bigfoot researcher now. It was his first time that he had ever gone out. We have a research area that it's his property. Mm-hmm. That's what I'll call it. And we're blessed enough to have lots of encounters, I guess you could say. But we've had a lot of encounters in the Allegheny National Forest as well in Western Pennsylvania. His first time out on like a actual like research trip, and we heard it was just like the third night, and it was just like that, monkeys in the woods in Pennsylvania. Yeah. And he was just floored, like, "Oh my God, like this is I've heard it there a few times." But yeah, it was just like, he's like, "This is like an episode of National Geographic. What the heck's going on?"
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, it's it's a weird sensation when that kind of stuff
it is.
Pops off where it shouldn't.
And it's distinctly different than like coyotes doing it. Well, we actually had a recorder going that should have picked it up. The crazy part with that recorder is it didn't pick up anything for about 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Not even us talking, standing right next to it, talking, didn't even pick it up. It's like there's about 6 minutes of dead space, and it's a serious recorder. It's not like, the $19 job you buy on Amazon. Like, it's made for this stuff, right? Nothing, just blank. So yeah, I've got stories, man.
Yeah, stuff like that happens that messes with.
So going forward, what have you got going on now? Like, I mean, I'm sure you had alluded to another project with Tony and those guys, but anything else going on?
Yeah, we're actually finishing up post-production on the last trip that we took this past fall. We went down to an area that's secret. The group that researches it is called ASOG. Anomalous Studies and Observation Group. Trey Hudson's the team lead there. And we kind of shadowed them for a night down at this location they just call it the Meadow. And they've had some really wild experiences.
Oh yeah.
Down there. So, and we had a couple ourselves, but mostly, like we had kind of a hitchhiker effect thing happen the morning after we left. There were muddy hair and handprints left on a vehicle that wasn't there the night before. And like when I said like fur drug across it is the only thing I could think of. But
Yeah.
yeah, they've had a number of strange things down there, and we did too, mostly dealing with like our perceptions being manipulated, toyed with. So yeah, we're working on post-production on that one right now. That should come out hopefully in June. We just kind of did the last little shooting, except for we might do some reenactments for that one. So that one should be coming out in June. I think it's just going to be called the Meadow Project.
Yep.
And it'll be companion piece with Trey's got a second book coming out. So they'll probably release pretty close together. And then, yeah, the one that I'm ramping up for now, the reason that we're house blessing is we're headed up to Bray Road, Elkhorn, Wisconsin territory.
Yep.
Gonna deal with, there's a property up there that's still really active with stuff that you would reasonably associate with the Beast of Bray Road. Carcasses disappearing, animal mutilations, some UFO activity even. I mean, you know, it's high strangeness, so it runs the gamut. And looking at, I don't want to give too much away, but there was a 6-fingered handprint left on the gentleman's trailer in January when we were talking about coming up, with no other tracks, like left in the snow, like a dusting of snow over this flat trailer that he loads his hay on, with a 6-fingered handprint with no other tracks leading up to or away from it. And it had to have been done in like the 5 minutes he was away from the trailer, because he.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a pretty direct.
Yeah. Wow.
Pretty direct symbol. So, yeah, we're going into that one in a pretty direct way, I guess. More so than the others.
Yeah. Wow. Just getting after it.
Yeah.
Well, wow. That's a lot going on, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. So do me a favor. With all this being said, considering the name of this podcast, Broadcasting Seeds, any like seeds of wisdom that you can plant in my audience's mind to like get them to like, you know, realize that everything's not black and white, right? And there's a lot of high strangeness. And plant a seed, get them thinking about things that maybe the way that you do.
Well, I would say that for the vast majority of human history, both seen and unseen realities were taken as given. And that it's only been a very short, novel period of human history where we've pretended that only material exists, only material causes have effects, and that almost everyone is rapidly abandoning that idea, that materialism is dying. I would say that given that that's the case, there are two options for how to make sense of that. Like, okay, if we're going to set aside the scientism, the materialism that we've grown up with, we can either choose to believe that Like there is no work that's been done here, that we can't understand it, that whatever things manifest from the unseen realm, whether it's UFO, alien phenomena, the alien abduction experiences, night paralysis, the things that are sort of becoming more openly experienced, that people are admitting to these experiences. We can either treat them as if, there's no data on this. It's completely, we don't know what it is, and choose to interact with it on that basis, on that this might be, these things might be benign. Maybe we need to be called to evolve to our higher level of consciousness and all of this. Or we could recognize that this narrative of things from the unseen making contact and inviting us to believe a set of things and do a whole set of things, whatever the ritual looks like, whether it's transcendental meditation in a field trying to summon the ETs, or whether it's straight up, witchcraft to manifest your riches or love or whatever it is.
Right.
That all of that stuff has like a recognized, it's not like that's new. It's not like we don't know what it is. So the second way is to realize that the longing for connection with the transcendental is good. It's fact, an undeniable part of human existence. It's to long to connect with the divine and the transcendental. And that in fact, a way has been made for us to do that. That way might be uncomfortable because it comes with, it impinges on the sort of absolute moral freedom that we think that we have to do whatever we feel like and whatever pleases us. But it does make demands. But the good news is that the doorway from the divine to human has been opened already. It has been opened via the blood of Jesus Christ. And if you want to make contact with the divine and the transcendental in the only way that will fulfill that desire truly, the way is there. So that's uncomfortable because it's probably exclusionary of somebody, and I'm sure it may be offensive, but that is the only thing that I know to make sense of not only these experiences, but the experience of the world, of suffering, of good and evil, and the war that we're engaged in that way.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Tell us where we can find you again.
Yeah, I am terrible at keeping up with social media. I hate doing it. But at Dark Holler Studios on Instagram is me. And darkhollerstudios.com is where the kind of the home of the production company. A lot of the films, if they're not on darkhollerstudios.com or darkhollerfilm.com, they are on merkle.media. So the pieces that we've done with Tony are available there.
Yeah. Some are available on YouTube as well.
Yeah, the original, the Dark Holler series is available on YouTube as well. That's true.
Yeah. I watched it somewhere else, but I don't remember where.
I had it for a while. It was on Vimeo, and then
that's where I watched it. Vimeo.
Yeah, you could pay for it and get it in 4K with no ads.
That's where I watched it because it wasn't available. Yeah, not well, and it's either way.
So you must have watched it early because
it was a while ago. It's been a while, years and years. So, yeah, man. But it sticks in my head. I can't shake it. So
that's good.
Good for you, man. Good on you. So
yeah, thank
Ward,
you.
Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll have to do it again at some point once you've got some different stories to tell.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing. One of my elders and I do a podcast kind of reviewing these trips as I come back. It's called the Ohio Howl.
Okay.
So yeah, it's more it's very informal.
Yeah, I'll put all the links in the show notes and
Yeah,
stuff.
awesome.
So.
Awesome, yeah. I always
Ohio Howl
forget that one.
Cast. Cool. Yeah, awesome. All right, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You're absolutely welcome.
I got bad thoughts that make my mind scared. Hold me hostage and they don't fight fair. Who gon' pray for me and wipe on my tears? Who gon' save me if you not right here? Move this darkness and make my sight clear. Take me away cause I don't like here. Ghosts of my past, they feeling the night air. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Drowning, I'm off the deep end. Apparitions of all my demons. All my thoughts are committing treason. All alone, who gon' hear me screaming? Manifestations of my fears. Regrets that stretched out for light years. Can almost touch the light, homie, it's right there. Body free, but trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, don't let me drown. All the lights are